This was part of the new reveal from the upcoming MMORPG, Dune Awakening.
For the precious melange. Even when it looks like defeat is inevitable, those who understand desert power can awaken Arrakis itself.
But so was this. Let's talk about the big reveals we got from Gamescom's debut trailer for Fruncom's upcoming MMORPG, Survival MMORPG, Dune Awakening. With the big trailer at Gamescom, we got a lot of things with Dune. We got a release window that's sooner than expected and a lot of information on things like how combat's gonna work, as well as the fact that yes, this is actually a survival game. Everything about the start of the trailer gives off Conan Exile vibes for me, from the fact that, yeah, you go ahead and start abandoned in the desert, although I guess kind of the whole planet is a desert, so that was a known thing, but also things like the UI elements and graphics. You're kind of just hit in the face with the idea that they're going to lean very heavily into survival. But there's a lot of other parts of the trailer as well, especially some of the combat and the vistas that honestly looked a bit better than I was expecting. I'm primed for this MMO not because I know much about Dune. I've never actually read the books and I haven't seen the movies either. I'm primed for this because I know some of Fruncom. I played Age of Conan and enjoyed it, even past Tortage, although the experience of enjoyment just kind of like fell off a cliff. But also I really like this one thing because they kind of said the magic words for me. They said that Dune Awakening was in part inspired by Star Wars Galaxies. And when you start throwing around the name Star Wars Galaxies, you instantly have my attention. Let's start with the visuals of the trailer though. My first impression here are that the environments look great and incredible even, but character models look a bit too much like Conan Exiles at times, though in different situations like the third-person shooter combat, they do look pretty good. It's honestly a bit of a mixed bag altogether though. You'll create your own character, choose your background, and begin the game, alone, running from a freaking sandworm, apparently.
Crash into the planet. You are abandoned and alone. Hunted by sandworms. Scorched by the unforgiving sun.
We find out that as you travel through the desert, the sun will be a danger. On screen, we see the survival elements, like your character is suffering from sunstroke and heat exhaustion, which honestly is very relatable. You know why. You are also unsheltered. Water is draining fast, a resource you obviously need in the desert. There's even a UI element showing the power of the sun at the place where you are. Safe to say, this MMO will be more survival elements than most MMOs you're used to. You can alleviate some of this by sticking to the shade, in fact. But when I say MMO, when we call this a survival MMO, there's always been a question about how big will this game be? How big will its servers be? It's a question that still remains mostly unanswered, but we may have gotten a pretty big clue that might have passed some people by. That's in this section of the trailer right here.
Meet hundreds of other players in the vast online world. Befriend or betray those you meet.
Hundreds of other players in a vast online world. Hundreds, not thousands, but not tens either. So bigger than Conan Exiles, but perhaps smaller than most MMORPGs. If you remember a more recent survival-esque game that launched as an MMO, but now no longer calls itself an MMO, New World launched with servers of about 1,000 players per server, and then they ran into the realization that that's not enough room for them. So they upped it to 1,500 and then 2,000, I believe 2,500 now. So they just kept upping the server size. But that's still all relatively small for an MMORPG server. I believe currently, as far as I know from the sources I've seen, EverQuest servers are about 6,000 players. So just to kind of put that in perspective. So it could be that this talk of hundreds could mean that we have servers that have 1,000 players or less, which still sounds like a ton of players, But in an MMO, that can get capped very quickly, and an MMO that looks like it's going to be relying heavily on a vibrant player base, it gets even more concerning. It's worth noting though that this game is still being marketed by Fruncom as an open world survival MMO, quite literally using the term MMO on their website. They also make it clear that working together with others increases your chance of staying alive. In fact, most of the trailer is all about cooperation and friction between players, with players using vehicles together, performing different class roles together, building and crafting, even refining the blood of enemies into water, the much needed resource. It's all about player to player interaction in this trailer, with a couple sandworms thrown in. But even that actually has something to do with player to player interaction. We get to see for the first time some of the combat up close, with a tiny bit of melee combat, but primarily the ranged third-person shooter combat. The controls shown on screen, interestingly, all appear to be console controls, which I guess makes sense because Dune won't just be a PC MMO. It will also be launching on console, eventually. But first it'll be launching on Steam in early 2025, with console dates to be announced later. That's right, this game will be launching early on Steam in 2025. Now, I mean, early in 2025, I guess could essentially mean anything from January to, I don't know, the end of May. Is that still early 2025? It's before the halfway mark. But it's interesting that they're using a footage showing controllers when that's potentially going to be coming later than Steam. But there's at least your release date window, early 2025. As we explore the building in the game, one of the interesting things we see is that you can create these structures yourself and then go on to sell a blueprint of the structure, or buy one. Crafting and building looks like it's going to be a big part of the game, from the fabricators that will enhance your gear, the extractors that'll get you water, to building your own base, and even vehicles piece by piece. Speaking of vehicles, flying the ornithopter looks downright fun. Probably something I'll be terrible at, flying straight into a dune or something, probably immediately after building it. But hey, at least it'll be fun for a few seconds. The trailer ends with your character joining one of the great houses of Dune, and a call to gain power through spice on Dune. This is where it gets into the PvP aspects of the game, with guilds all trying to get that spice at the same time, really condensing that need for PvP into one significant event and kind of bringing everybody together instead of it all being just this random hodgepodge of PvP everywhere else. There is a distinct area that you want to go to that is contested. This is also perhaps where we get to see the thing that is the most ridiculous PvP thing I have ever seen in any game, because this looks nuts.
With multiple guilds vying for the precious melange, even when it looks like defeat is inevitable, those who understand desert power can awaken Arrakis itself.
So yeah, I guess if you want to rage quit from PvP, just summon a freaking sandworm, I guess.